Okay, this is the official tier list for healers in Midnight. I have been playing beta non-stop, testing every single day. I have played for 24 days now, and I have a genuinely interesting perspective on healing. I have played not just healers and not just every single hero talent of healers, but also all of the tanks. And I can tell you that as a tank player, there were some healers I felt very comfortable with. They made me feel all nice and cozy inside. And there are other healers where I was like, why am I struggling so much? And then after actually testing the healers themselves, there are very large differences. Now, I need to caveat this before we get into the actual tier list. There's a few things you have to understand. Number one, all of this is subject to change. But today, rather than focus just on which healer is the most powerful, because there's an obvious answer to that. There is a very clear S tier outlier healer on beta that's just better than everything else. And there are other few healers which are clearly numerically a little bit lower, but they can change that. What I want to focus on a little bit more is not just how powerful it is, but what the playstyle is. Is it fun? Did I actually enjoy it? Those are really important factors to consider because when you choose your main for a season, you're playing it for 6 months straight. A WoW season is kind of long. Like 6 months is a long time. You have to enjoy what you're playing. There's going to be a meta. Of course, there's going to be a meta. Midnight Season 1 hopefully will be more balanced than the previous versions of the game that we've had. But even right now, it's fairly balanced. Like this is not the most unbalanced it's ever been, and we still have such a clear meta, you know? And so I think that it's a very important and impactful thing to realize that playing the meta healer, where it might be the right decision if you're pugging and you're trying to go as high as possible, it is more important that you have fun playing the game because otherwise you'll burn out. And if you burn out early, you don't get title or high Mythic Plus score anyways. So first things first, we're going to be focusing on all the factors of healing, not just numerically how powerful it is, although that will be taken into account. Second thing, I have logs and everything to back all of this up. I have a few of them open here, and I want to show you specific examples because some of these might surprise you. And the last thing is they will change numbers. Numbers are going to change. What we need to give feedback on is not, hey, this thing doesn't heal, it hits like a wet noodle. What we need to give feedback on is I am trying to heal the second boss of Pit of Sauron, one of the new dungeons that's coming back, and I can't because I fundamentally lack the toolkit when I'm playing my favorite healer. I cannot heal it because they took cooldowns away. They've made so many changes to fundamental healing philosophy, and they said they were going to change keys so that we could heal. And they said, we're going to take power out of cooldowns. We're going to give you more power in your base kit. We're going to make you less reliant. Yeah, but the problem is they're still designing encounters to require a burst healing cooldown every 60 seconds. Now, every 60 seconds doesn't seem that bad, but there are some healers that don't have a cooldown every 60 seconds anymore. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. What I want to focus on, and you're going to be surprised by what I put in the soup tier. I don't think you're going to predict it. You can guess. What do you think is the worst healer in my personal opinion? Out of every single hero talent, and I've played both, keep in mind, I have done several keys on each of these healers, on each of these hero talent specs. There's only 2 or 3 hero talents that I only played a single time because I said no more testing is needed. No, it's not Holy Priest. Actually, after testing, because I played Holy Priest yesterday, and we back-to-back timed 15s. Look, I'm going to show you. I can show you the logs. This is me. That was my Disc Priest. Look at my Holy Priest. My Holy Priest actually did not feel terrible. The numbers were pretty solid. This is a lot of damage. This is quite a bit of damage here for Holy Priest. Do you know what actually feels the worst to play? And didn't even feel that bad to play. I felt like I had options. I actually felt, no. We're going to go over Holy in a second. It's not Holy Priest that goes down here. It's Shaman. Shaman actively feels terrible to play. And what's crazy is they actually made a good change to it just a few days ago. They announced that Apex talent will now proc off of your nature's swiftness and/or your ancestral swiftness if you're playing Farseer. That was a good change because I finally felt like I had control over it. Before, it was such a low proc rate that I thought the way to fix the Apex talent was to buff the proc rate. But then they took that and they were like, wait a second, fun detected, and then they nerfed it again. I'm going to tell you something. I did a 15 Algathar on my Farseer Shaman yesterday before they re-nerfed the Apex talent. And I still was struggling a little bit with output on a fight like Veximus. Veximus has 2 overlaps. It happens frequently throughout the fight. They've redone the fight a little bit. It's just like Dragonflight, where Veximus is an encounter where it has 3 dots that go out. You have to heal it. It does approximately 100% of somebody's health bar, so you need to have some healing during that window, otherwise people might die. You have movement during it. You can get a heal off. So as a Farseer Shaman, you think, okay, there are 2 of these sets. They happen every 20 seconds or so. The first set, I'm just going to prep my Riptides, and I'm going to chain heal. But your chain heal hits like a wet noodle, man. Like, it doesn't hit for if you don't actually press a big cooldown, which you're not supposed to. First set, no overlap. Second set, overlap. So what you do with Shaman, and I think that Farseer actually does feel just actively terrible to play, because your Ancestors and your healing kit doesn't feel powerful. You do still have a big cooldown, and that cooldown is nice. What I did on that fight to prep is I had my Apex Talent out, and someone still died. Because my Apex Talent is a trickle heal over 20 seconds, and what I needed was burst healing in that window. Now, I was thinking in my head, okay, the next time I come into this fight, the only way I'm going to do this is I have Healing Tide or Ascendance for one set, and then the next overlap, what am I going to do? And I was thinking, okay, what I have to do is I have to hold my Ancestral Swiftness the entire time for this overlap, and that's the only way, and I am just going to be able to cover it, because what happens is, if you think about how to heal this as a Shaman, you have movement, you have health bars drop to about 10-20%, and then there's a big AoE that happens within 2 seconds. So I have 2 seconds to hit 2 impactful globals to top people before the AoE, at least to 80% health. It doesn't one-shot even at a 15, but it does do a lot of damage. And you can't trust your pugs to use defensive. You can't even track if they're using defensives now. So as a Farseer Resto Shaman, what I found is I just didn't really have coverage. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, I can make a plan, but now I have to hold the thing that I actually want to press. I want to press this button just because it's a fun, I want my Ancestors out. But I realized that the only way I was going to be able to heal it realistically was if I hold that for every overlap. And that just felt really bad, and I was like kind of almost depressed thinking about it. And I said, okay, that's one thing. That's just Veximus. You know, Algathar, it's okay. You can still heal it. You can still play any of the things that are in this tier, but I think that it feels anti-fun. The fact that I have to hold Ancestral Swiftness for actual checks, and the fact that I have to lock in so much just to play Farseer Resto Shaman, it's not fun. It actually feels like I notice everything I've lost. There are other healers where, yeah, it's been pruned, but I don't feel inadequate when I play them. This one I do, because Algathar is a pretty easy dungeon to heal. Like, that's not that hard to heal. You know what is hard to heal? Magister's Terrace. You know what is hard to heal? A few of the other dungeons. And I also did those on my Shaman. I also played... I played Totemic as well. Totemic at least felt a little bit smoother because Double Downpour is kind of cool, and just it felt a little bit more like a Shaman where I was like, hey, Totem, simple, straightforward. I'm not like gaming super hard. My problem is, again, I did a Magister's Terrace where it's actually a stacked fight, okay? This one needs tuning. I wouldn't say it's in soup. I think Farseer actively feels bad. I think that this is still feels like Totemic, but the problem with this is, like, here's what happened with this healer. Magister's Terrace, second boss. Now it has, this is a big healing check. 3 dots, your party has to clear, and every time they clear, you have to dodge. So high movement, this is going to be a theme that you're going to notice here for all these dungeons. High movement, burst healing required, and also more than 1 target. Not single target burst healing, but you need to actually be able to cleave 2 or 3 targets. Okay. Yeah, I had like a plan. I walked in, I said, okay, first one, I've got my totem, double downpour, this. What I'm going to do after that is I'm going to hit my healing tide totem, and then we have the AoE. I'll have a time to recover. I'll have about 10 seconds to top people before the next dot. Yeah, in the 10 seconds, I couldn't top people because my healing wave outside of my big cooldown, which is 10 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown, hits like a wet noodle, and not one of those cool wet noodles that you used to play with your sibling at the pool. You remember those pool noodles? Those are cool. Those are actual awesome wet noodles. Those types of wet noodles, you like Matrix fight underwater, that was cool. And you drink a Capri Sun after, it's nostalgia. We're all old now. We play World of Warcraft. Okay, listen. The problem with this is I think that it's a needs tuning because my heals didn't heal. Like, I can't express to you how bad it feels to put the totem down, downpour, and then healing wave. and it's a 1.8-second cast, which is the longest single target cast in any of these healers right now. So it feels actively bad just from a casting perspective. The time it takes to cast is really, really tough. And on top of that, it does like 10, 15% of somebody's health bar, 20% maybe, if I crit. Like, it's really bad because, again, 2 or 3 targets are taking damage, and I can hit the totem, and like my totems are kind of trickle healing. At least I had a way to proc the Apex Talent before, and now they've nerfed it again, and the Apex Talent didn't even feel that good. You would think that the Apex Talent, you're like, well, if I hit the Stormstream totem, especially as totemic, well, it'll taunt my group. It doesn't. Like, if you get a proc and you actually press it, you'll notice your health bars go doo, doo, doo. But the encounter design is forcing your health bar to go whoosh and whoosh and whoosh. It's just really like, it felt very anti-fun. Now, that's just Magister's Terrace. Another example, and this is the boss I'm going to talk about the most. If you watch this whole tier list, you need to understand that healer tuning individually is oftentimes determined by encounter design. As in, if the encounters are all rot fights, if all the hard checks in dungeons are rot fights, then some healers are going to thrive and some healers are going to not thrive. You see? Mana management will become a bigger deal. But if the encounters are no damage, burst damage, no damage, burst damage, then some healers are going to thrive and some healers won't. So it depends what the timing of the encounter is. That actually determines a lot about which healer is good. Pit of Sauron is a great example. This dungeon, the first 2 bosses work like this. The first dungeon is exactly Kajin from Halls of Infusion. It's constant ticking damage. It's rot damage. You need massive HPS. Huge HPS fight. Very, very fun to play, okay? I like it. It is fun for me because I wanted to bring all of my healers to the first boss of this dungeon so I could test HPS. I was like, okay, what's my output going to be like? Even on a 12, which is a lower key on beta compared to 15 or whatever, it was interesting. I could fall behind as I was learning a few healers. I noticed that I could make some mistakes and then catch up. I could say, oh, I gotta game this on my healing potion or this or whatever, but I could make a plan, and I liked that. So I felt like I had agency as a healer. If I died, if I didn't play well, whole team was dead. But I didn't have to play pitch perfect for 3 minutes. I'm sure as that key level gets higher, it's going to be a little bit more like that. It felt good. It felt really, really good. I was able to do it on 16, etc. on my Prez Evoker. Obviously, Resto Druid makes that encounter trivial, but I was able to game it, and I would love to just do that fight kind of on repeat. Honestly, I think that fight on repeat would be a lot of fun. The problem with Pit of Sauron is not that one. It's the fact that the boss right after that makes that dungeon actively terrible. Oh my god. Okay. So that's the first boss. It's basically, there's one instance of a little spike damage with a single dispel. It's honestly, I think that people will enjoy healing it because it's a good test of healing. Your damage doesn't matter. You're really just healing that fight, and it feels rewarding. Okay, so that's that. The second boss is a boss where every 60 seconds there's a phase. In that phase, you have to dodge puddles, and there are 3 kicks, and there are 2 curse dispels. And what happens is, when the phase happens, everybody drops to about 50% health. And if any of those kicks start going off on top of the curse dispels, people's health bars will plummet fast. You need to fully top people for 10 seconds straight. Because 8 seconds after that happens, a massive AoE burst of damage goes out. If people are not topped for the AoE damage, then they die. It's not instant, but what happens is phase, 3 kicks, 2 dispels, okay, and you're dodging. So movement, this plus that. That's a tough healing check. That's a really tough encounter. And people are not going to probably be willing to use defenses or help you out. So what happens there is this. There are some healers that have a button to press, a big button, every minute. And there are other ones that don't. You have to understand why this feels so bad to play. Because when I did it on 15 on my Resto Shaman, I barely managed to get past the first boss. The first boss, I did 98k HPS or something like that on my, I think it was Farseer. I was playing Farseer at the time still. And I was like, oh my god, please, Apex Talent proc. And I was falling behind. I just barely managed. The second boss was instant death. The first phase, I said, great, Healing Tide. I was playing Healing Tide at the time instead of Ascendance. Doesn't matter. Either one works. I said, big burst of damage, great. And I have a kick. And I have Curse Dispel, great. I was actually good on Shaman. You'd think Shaman would be great at that fight. But then the second set rolled around, and I was like, what to do? Because I had nothing. You can't link it. People are spread killing the different ads. Link doesn't work. So what? You have nothing. Like, you have to understand that healer design really matters. Like, the dungeon encounter design. If it requires a big, massive cooldown every 60 seconds, then if they take that away from Shaman, I think you can't heal it. And the next healer that I'm going to rank is exactly the same as this, because I noticed the same exact problem happening, okay? So the next thing we're going to rank is Holy Paladin. Holy Paladin, Herald of the Sun, I played it in the same exact dungeon I'm just talking about, okay? 15 Pit of Sauron. I played Herald yesterday after the fixes to Herald. I do think those Herald fixes were a lot more for red, because as I played it, it just doesn't feel good. Now, to be fair, as far as I know, this is still quite a bit bugged. It just doesn't feel rewarding. When you play Herald of the Sun, your Dawn Light should matter. The only saving grace for this, of course, is the fact that Eternal Flame feels great. I mean, comparatively, like, just being able to spread that, get your actual hot on people, it just feels good to have something like that. I think the first boss of Pit of Sauron required some min-maxing, but I'm not going to lie, I just didn't think about Dawn Light whatsoever. Like, I was trying to. I was like, hey, this target's a little squishier. After I press my toll or my prism, if you're playing it, then I'm gonna spread it to this target, and then I've got this, and I'm gonna kind of try to game it. And it just didn't hit very hard. It didn't feel rewarding, because I had been playing Lightsmith all the time before that. And Lightsmith feels impactful. Like, if I press wings on Lightsmith, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in it. I've got this now. And Herald just did not feel like rewarding gameplay, because the other thing I was trying was like, what if I try to min-max my damage just a little bit, and after I hit this, I'm going to make sure I hit 2 Shields of the Righteous after, so that I can apply Dawn Light to enemies, and that should do good numbers, right? I just did like 5%, like 10% extra, and that's nothing, because healer damage is so low right now, that I was just like, man, it doesn't feel rewarding either way. If I use everything for pure HPS, I feel like I'm behind. Again, that fight was my lowest HPS, I think was Herald, when I was doing that first boss. I was able to heal it, and I was able to sustain it, but the second boss came around, and I had the same problem. The first encounter, I said, hey, look, everybody's about to die. For the next 8 seconds, I need maximum healing. And I was playing Herald at this point. So what I did was I said, okay, first one, I'm going to use my combat potion and wings, right? I'm going to save bubble. I'm going to save other things for the second set. First set, I'm going to wings, and I was able to top people. Wings, virtue, send the cooldowns, your toll's up for the next one. So wings, virtue, toll, big holy shock cleaves, huge healing. I was able to sustain the first set. No one died on the first AoE overlap again. We had no curse to spell this dungeon either. Okay, there was no curse to spell in this comp. But I was able to sustain it. And then the second set rolled around. I was setting up, had everything perfectly planned, and someone got hit by a puddle. So their health dropped to 10%. And I immediately went lay on hands. Okay, so I got them, full health. But then the phase happened, and I had panicked a little bit. So I sent my virtue early. And I was like, okay, no, I got this, no problem. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I just clicked all the right healing buttons, and people died instantly. Like, literally within 5 seconds. The AoE hit hadn't even happened and people died, because I couldn't sustain people. I thought, I'm going to Aura Mastery. That should be enough. I'm going to Aura Mastery. And I just don't know how I would get through it without wings. If I have wings up, I can do it. But if I don't, like, maybe you have to play certain talents. Maybe I could try to game it, but the truth is that Herald did not feel rewarding. And it's not so much a needs tuning. It just didn't feel good to play. And that is the main difference of why it would be in soup. Whereas Lightsmith, I feel like Lightsmith is kind of solid. I mean, you could put it in needs tuning, because pure HPS-wise, it's a little lower than others. And I could totally see an argument where Lightsmith should be considered in a needs tuning category. But I think that I felt solid playing it. When I was actually testing this, I did feel like I had options. Again, I was playing Virtue in pretty much all of my keys, just so I had access to burst healing. A lot of these keys are spiky damage every so often. I think Virtue is the play. Maybe some people are playing Beacon still, not sure. I think some people are. It feels at least solid. It could get tuned for sure, but at least I don't think it's an incomplete spec, if that makes sense. Like I think it's not incomplete at the very least. The only thing is wings, sacred weapon, etc. I do still feel like I'm missing that button because I have aura mastery, I have this, and I just wish that toll hit a little bit harder so I could have that as an extra thing. I wish that I don't know, like holy shot, like if you virtue and you set it up correctly and you have some amps, you can actually do pretty well, but casting holy light does not feel good. There were a few different builds. If I had to approach the second boss of Pit of Sauron again, I would have to make a better plan for it, and these healers would need to game hard because they just don't have coverage. One of the things you'll notice as I rank the other healers is it has a lot to do with who has coverage and who does not, as in who has a button that will full top the group when a mistake happens versus who needs to be gaming, ramping, planning, etc. These are some of the big things that I noticed playing all the different healers because there were some times I just felt hopeless, and these gave me that feeling often where I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like in my head, the way I think about it, if I ever fail a key, I'm the sort of guy where afterwards I'm like trying to fall asleep at night. I'm like, do you remember that time you made a mistake? Well, oh my God, you failed. You're a failure. And I'm like, oh no, okay, so I have to solve that thought. And while I'm laying there going to sleep, I think, okay, so the next time, how can I avoid making that mistake? That's the type of gamer I am. If you're watching this tier list, you probably are like that too. I think that these, I don't know, but at least with some of the healers I'm about to rank next, I feel as though I could make a plan. The exception to this, obviously, the next one we're going to rank is Holy Priest. Surprisingly, by the way, this is kind of surprising, Holy Priest did not feel actively terrible. Like, Holy Priest, that's just Priest. Holy Priest, actually, in this log, I played it yesterday, and we back-to-back time keys. I played both Archon and... I played Archon and Oracle. And surprisingly, I didn't feel terrible. But of course, that Holy Priest has the problem of the fact that it's a Holy Priest. So your damage on Holy Priest is actually really solid. No joke, the first... Well, let me see. Is this the log? First pull. Look at the first pull. Look at the first pull. Holy Priest kind of blasts AoE. Like if you are greeting your damage, you can do a lot of damage. This first pull of Alcathar is a very fun pull because there's not a lot of healing to do on this pull, so you can kind of just be blasting the whole time. That's very significant healer damage. So surprisingly, Holy Priest is not feeling the actual worst, but of course the trade-off is I can't really be doing a lot of healing if I'm just greeting my Holy Fires, etc. Okay. So when it comes to actual HPS, if I dive deep into each log that we did as I'm doing this tier list, it's going to take forever. So we can't go into the logs exactly, but basically here's what's up. Serenity hits hard enough that it tops people. And the constant... I was able to kind of keep people top through rot damage just based on mending, bouncing around, and kind of just healing people. My mana didn't feel like an issue, but Flash Heal definitely hits like a wet noodle. So if they buffed Flash Heal enough where I felt a little bit more impactful with that button, I could see it being at least feeling a little better. But I feel like Holy Priest, where it actually is it kind of just, it needs tuning, but it surprisingly did not feel terrible to play. Apotheosis being a very long cooldown, it's 32 seconds. That's a long cooldown. What happened was on Veximus, we were talking about that in the Algathar, early on Resto Shaman, where there's two overlaps and I needed to make a plan. I made a plan and I executed it first try on my Holy Priest because it was pretty simple. I said, hey, look, what I'm going to do, my mendings are out on Oracle, and all I'm going to do from here is I'm going to set up, the mana bombs happen, I have Fade Flash DR on myself, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to go Serenity, boom, top, and then group top, and I'm good. And I actually had Apotheosis to cover one, and I had another button to cover another thing. Like, that actually felt pretty decent. I was kind of surprised by how well that felt. And I do feel like, again, you think about the second boss of Pit of Sauron, you don't have a kick, you don't have a curse to spell, but you might actually be able to just ping pong health bars on the burst required, potentially, but it does need a little bit of tuning. I don't think it feels terrible. Obviously, the AoE components of healing feels a little weird. Sanctify is... I don't know what they're doing. I've never known what they were doing with Sanctify and Keys. In Raid, it's fine, but in Keys, people aren't stacked. Like, one way to fix Resto Shaman is to give them a choice node with Spirit Link that actually just adds an extra cooldown, like they have with let me think about that for a second. I was thinking about this earlier. What they have with Dispriest. Dispriest has the same thing that this needs. I'll talk about that when I get to Dispriest. So it actually surprisingly, like, a no joke, if you told me, hey, look, let's go do a key. I want to do a 15 Skyreach right now. Would you rather play your Resto Shaman or your Holy Priest? I cannot believe I would say this, but I think I would rather play my Holy Priest. This is not even a joke. If you actually ask me, I'll be like, Holy Priest. I would rather play Holy Priest. And if you ask me anything else, I'd probably rather play those. But it's so interesting to me how much that has changed over time. Okay? Archon. Archon felt more fun. It's probably because Halo being a flavorful effect in class fantasy is actually really impactful, but it also, this build does not play Prayer of Healing. The Oracle build is no Prayer of Healing. So you kind of are triage healing the whole time. It just has to be impactful triage healing. Archon, I mean, okay, it needs tuning. Like, I can't put it in solid, but I put it above here at the very least. It felt fun because I could bank, build the Lightweaver stacks, which is what I was playing at the time, and then when I cast Prayer of Healing, it was an impactful button. On Croth, when the damage happened, I said, okay, cool, the Shriek's coming out, it's a 10-second bleed. I said, boom, boom, boom. I was able to actually feel like I had a plan. Veximus, same thing. The other encounters, I think I'd be able to game Holy Priest. And once again, if you ask me, would I rather play... In terms of which one I prefer playing, I definitely prefer playing Archon. It's just, there's something about being a Holy Priest and having massive halos on top of the fact that Prayer of Healing is kind of a fun button. I don't know why it's a fun button to press. There's nothing really special about it, but it certainly feels more fun than Oracle. Archon did a little bit more damage, but that could have just been me getting a bit more comfortable by that point. So Holy Priest, for once, is not at the very bottom of this tier list. And, you know, it's interesting. I'm not a lore person. I'm a very, hey, I just want to play keys type person. So I like tuning, and I like the spec being good. But most importantly, I don't like feeling helpless. The worst feeling as a healer is feeling helpless. Although I will say, class fantasy absolutely does matter. If class fantasy didn't matter, ain't nobody would play Holy Priest. And if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Part of the reason people play Holy Priest is because it's a Holy Priest. But you gotta understand, as I continue to rank these healers, the thing that matters the most is agency. Very, very, very few times in Mythic Plus does a healer require maximum HPS. More often than not, what a healer requires is the ability to have the thing available when you need it. And these dungeons currently are requiring that agency. These dungeons are specifically designed to have healing checks at X time period. They have not moved away from that philosophy. There's a lot less kicks that go off in the middle of packs that you have to just boom, boom, boom. Like, that's not so much a thing anymore. You know, the quote-unquote bolt slop does feel better in these dungeons. But agency is so important because you'll notice that with the next few healers, I'm going to tell you why they feel so different. Now, okay, there's one more thing I have to rank. We're going to go in to the next thing now. And obviously, every one of these healers will have timestamps in the actual YouTube video when I post this. Okay? So you can just skip around to your healer if you'd like. What I tested today, the very last healer that I actually tested today was Discipline Priest. Discipline Priest was okay. It didn't feel as rough as I thought it would feel. It actually felt pretty decent. The patch notes have changed it a lot. Discipline Priest, I think that was doing very good. They nerfed it a little bit. They changed it around a little bit. Discipline Priest is doing, along with the S tier healer, which I'll rank later, spoiler alert, is actually doing very well on beta. But there is a fundamental problem with it. One of the Discipline Priest specs is doing well. If you take a look at the logs on beta, okay, every single log is a single hero talent. I actually had to dive, I think, 27 logs in to find a single Void Weaver key. I played Void Weaver for a single dungeon. I walked in, and I couldn't heal my tank. I was playing with a Brewmaster. Keep in mind, I had just played with that Brewmaster, and at the very least, I felt like I had spot healing or an option to help him. Double Pain Sup, and I was just spamming. I was like, okay, my Rift is out. I'm doing big damn, and I got nothing. Like, I just don't have anything for you. And he died. And I felt, okay, let me take a look at the log. So I did. I took a look at the log when I was playing Voidweaver. And I was like, there's nothing I can do. And this is something I can reflect. Remember what I said at the beginning? The first week of beta, all I tested was tanks. If I, as a tank player, see that I'm playing with a Voidweaver healer, I think, okay, I'm on my own. I just immediately, my thought process is, this guy can't do anything for me. Maybe a pain sub. That's it. It's actually the healer that basically cannot help the tank. I don't like it. I feel like I have almost no agency. I do have some big cooldowns, but it does good damage, and it's fun. It's fun to do, to put Rift out and just atonement the group up, but I have no agency. I don't like the tuning on it. If anything, it probably goes and needs tuning, to be honest. It's probably just more of a needs tuning thing. I think it needs maybe some balancing on how something. It needs something, because I just could not. If your tank is not sturdy, you will struggle as a Voidweaver disc. And that, I think, is a very, very, very big component that should be considered when you rank this tier list. Because a lot of times when you start the season, if you put Voidweaver higher than this because it's doing good numbers and doing good damage, dude, it's so tough. It's so tough. Because what's going to happen, it's a good point. Let me breathe. That's a good point, though. No, yeah, listen, that's kind of what it's like as a Voidweaver, though. You guys are absolutely right. The thing is, tanks on the first week of the season, the first month of the season, are going to be bad because they don't know the dungeons. And it's unfair to tanks, okay? It's unfair to tanks because they need to learn when they're going to die. You should, as a healer, be willing to help your tank extra in the first month of a season. They're learning, hey, this really hurts, that is a bleed, because tanks have to pre-mitigate, okay? Tanks have to pre-mitigate damage. If they don't know when the damage is happening, then you as a healer are kind of responsible for saying, hey, look, you're not playing perfectly, but that's fine. I got you. And there are some healers that can absolutely do that, and there are other healers that just, you're on your own. It's true. Exactly what you're saying. Tank, may I have some heals? Voidweaver disc, absolutely not. You can have a black hole. And it's just, exactly, but that's what, I mean, if you're playing Voidweaver, there's a single beta healer right now who's doing higher keys on beta, Medicine Man. He's playing Voidweaver. And I asked him, I said, hey, can I ask you, why are you playing Voidweaver compared to Oracle? And he said, oh, I don't play Oracle. I only play Voidweaver. It's the only thing I'll play. And he is the only log that you can find pretty much of any decent level key, and he's just making it work. Now, I tanked for him. When I was playing my bear, which was pretty self-sufficient, I was like, it's okay, I guess. I just feel like I'm certainly fighting for my life. And then I played my warrior. And I played my warrior in a key with him. I played my warrior in a key that had healing absorbs. Because fun fact, you remember what I said earlier with shaman? Encounter design has a lot to do with what healers are actually good. And in Magister's Terrace, I'm pretty sure they're going to nerf this because there's some massive healing absorbs on the tank. There's a lot of healing absorbs on the tank. And my warrior was actually sitting there surviving until it timed out because he could not heal me. There was nothing he could do. He Void Blast, Void Blast, Void Blast, and I didn't get anything. So my warrior was kind of just sitting there, and I was like, okay, anytime now, please. I'm hitting all my buttons. And I just actually, the healing absorb had to time out because he couldn't heal it up. So Voidweaver, if anything, needs tuning. It is fun. I mean, on a different note, it's very fun. Like, it's certainly fun as a healer. If that's your preferred playstyle and you like doing big damn, it's very fun to just think, okay, I'm going to walk in. I don't really have to make a plan. I just kind of Radiance, and then I'm going to Mind Blast, and then I Void Blast, and then I Void Blast, and then I Void. I mean, it's kind of fun. So I get that it's fun, but it needs tuning. Okay, Oracle. Oracle is solid. I think it's very fun. It's solid. It's powerful. All of this will be on a YouTube video, and I'll timestamp each healer because I actually want to take a moment to talk about them. But remember that I want to talk about them from the perspective of when you start Midnight Season 1, where are you going to have success and where are you going to fail? The thing is that a lot of people have logged on to do like a key. And if you do a single key and you test a single dungeon and you log on and you say, oh, my class feels like this, and then you make a tier list from it, that doesn't get supported with data, because that's not how the average experience, especially if you're a high level player and you log in and all your beta friends and you play with the top level players on beta, they already know mechanics. They're going to use defensives. They're going to actually help you. That's a completely different experience than what most people are going to experience on the launch of the season when everyone's learning. And I challenge you to walk into if tuning was the same, and I'm assuming they're going to tune it or maybe change the play style, but good luck walking in as a shaman. Like, if you're a Farseer shaman, good luck walking into any of these dungeons the very first day, the very first week, and thinking, man, this feels impossible to heal. No, you're just a Farseer resto shaman, and it feels kind of actively bad to play. Like, I swear, and that's not me flaming shaman. I actually really like shaman. I have a shaman on retail. He's not that high. He's got Resil 17 before turbo boost. I like resto shaman. I'm actually a resto shaman enjoyer. It just, one reason I like it is because you can top health bars. You just game it right, ancestors out, boom. And it's like right now, I do the same setup and it does 20% of somebody's health. It takes me 5-6 globals to top 1 health bar, and there are 3 health bars that I need to top in 2 seconds. It's like, it doesn't work. So, and it just feels actively unfun, as I've covered before. But let's focus on Disc Priest. My apologies. Oracle Disc Priest actually felt pretty fun to play. I felt like I had options, but most importantly, the pre-shielding still exists. Veximus mechanic comes out, dude, everybody has a shield on them, so they don't drop. And then I have a second to just atonement heal, boom, and I go like bam, and then I just, okay. Like, I'm solid. Like, I actually have options of how to deal with things. And I think that one of the things about Disc Priest that I really like, this is underrated. I want to compare this to Resto Shaman because I actually think this is how you fix Resto Shaman. I see you guys there. Yeah, this is all going to be, I don't edit my video, so this is all one take. I'm just going to clip this entire thing to YouTube. So if I ignore some comments, my apologies. So here's what's up. You have a choice node between Ultimate Penitence and Barrier. Barrier is actually a very strong cooldown. And oftentimes, if you were thinking mathematically, is probably the play. In a lot of scenarios, Barrier is great. The problem is that so many of these healing checks, think Veximus on the Mana Bombs, or Croth, you just take Algathar as an example, or you take any of the new dungeons, so many of these checks are completely spread. So things like Link, things like Barrier don't work because nobody's going to be in them. They're basically, you have to take mechanics out, and then you're scrambling. The second boss of Mysara Caverns, big HPS check, but people are scrambling. No one's stacked. You have a lot of things to dodge. They like swirlies. So I like the fact that you have a choice node to say, well, I'm going to play Penitence. I'm going to play Ultimate Penitence. But Resto Shaman does not have that choice node. It's actually a pretty easy fix for coverage. If they just gave it that option, I think that would help a lot. But anyways, so you have Evangelism. You have a few powerful buttons. You can fill your rotation, but you can pre-shield people. If you're aware as a healer, this actually is enjoyable gameplay. You still do good damage. This is a log from me playing Oracle. The damage is adequate. PI still feels very valuable. I'm going to talk about some healer things at the end, but while I'm doing this, I could actually heal my tank. If you take a look at this log here, and you go to healing done, I was able to heal my tank. Look, I'm playing with a Brewmaster here, and we made this key. We timed this key because he had 45% of my healing. It's not a lot of healing in Algathar, but I was able to watch him properly, okay? The Apex talent actually feels very rewarding, and it procs at a very real rate, so you're not, like, completely starved for your Apex talent like Resto Shaman is. Do you actually notice it? It actually is very impactful. I was able to keep my tank alive. When I played Voidweaver, it was the same tank. I literally did the same. I was like, hey, we timed it on Oracle, and then I was like, hey, I'm going to play Voidweaver. Let's do it again. And he died, and I was like, I can't do anything for you. Like, the comparison is massive. So Voidweaver definitely needs the tuning, as I mentioned. Oracle actually feels solid. You have options to deal with things. You're still a Disc Priest. I feel like a Disc Priest because I'm still relying on my shields. I can pre-shield people. 20-second duration on Power Word Shield is ridiculous because I can get 3 out before a mechanic actually happens. And I have options. Also, you can heal pretty basic HPS through Atonement, even as Oracle. You're not completely reliant on just spot healing people. You can actually just Radiance and then blast the boss, and you will be able to cover a lot of basic healing on a lot of these fights. So that feels pretty fun. Obviously, you're a Disc Priest. You don't want to be spam flash healing people or anything like that, penancing people. You don't have to rely on that. I think that Disc Priest is in a pretty solid spot. It felt fun. If I was going to play Disc Priest again, I would feel confident about it, but I certainly wouldn't play Void Weaver, even though I do think it's fun to Void Blast. Doesn't matter. I would play Oracle 100%. So I think that Oracle is actually in a pretty decent spot. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Disc Priest. Okay, let's move on. Now, I saved these 3 healers for last because there's a lot to talk about with these 3 healers. Okay, first things first with Monk. Monk has 2 hero talents. I'm going to save Prez after. Keep in mind, that doesn't mean Prez is ranked higher. I'm just going through them as I see fit. So we have 2 specs of Monk. When I first tried Mistweaver, I admit, Mistweaver is one of the only healers I had never really played. I had dabbled in it. I've done some fun keys. In Shadowlands, I did some fun keys. In Dragonflight Season 3, when they were kind of good, I messed around with it a little bit. But I will admit that when I started Mistweaver on beta, I thought, I really need to learn this. So I took 2 entire days of gameplay to play my Mistweaver. Actually, 2 entire days, okay? And I buckled in and I said, okay, I'm not only am I going to play Mistweaver, but I'm going to play it in hard dungeons too, not just easy ones. So last week, I spent 2 entire days playing Mistweaver. And I am so glad that I did. I'm very, very, very glad that I did. The very first thing I tried was Master of Harmony, which doesn't have the icon here for some reason, but this is Master of Harmony. This is Conduit. So, Master of Harmony. I had initially thought that this was just absolute trash, because when I played with them before, they couldn't heal, and they were doing bad damage, etc., and I didn't know why they were there. Still suffers from being a Mistweaver, but ultimately, when I played it, I was like, okay, my first foray was Master of Harmony. I liked the double Thunder Focus T with the new Apex talent. I liked that I had some more interactions with stuff, but I can't track the vitality and the whole thing. Ultimately, I think this just needs tuning. I didn't really like playing Master of Harmony. When I was playing it originally, I thought, I don't have coverage. And that, to me, is the biggest thing. I didn't really have agency. Thunder Focus T into a straight-up Enveloping Mist instead of Rising Sun Kick is quite the nuke right now with the Apex talent. So that feels pretty nice. Fist Weaving, both builds. There's no, for what basically is this? The Fist Weaving felt decent. I was able to kind of keep people alive. But let me spoiler alert the next thing that I'm going to go over. Because I found a Mistweaver build where I was like, I want to play this again. It actually made me want to log in the next day, and I still want to play it right now because it was genuinely so much fun, and I had way more options. So the first thing to go over with Master of Harmony, this was my first foray into Mistweaver on beta, and I was kind of trying to figure out how I was going to heal. This whole list is my opinion, but I want to keep in mind, you can check any of my logs. They're in the Discord. You can join. I'm going to show you. I have data for everything. This is not random. This is in Mysara Caverns. When I was playing, I think I'd already swapped to the Conduit build here. But you can do fair HPS on Mistweaver. I was taking a look at the logs. Your damage is decent, but it's mostly about coverage. Because when I take a look at the healing checks of this season, so much of it is like Seat of the Triumvirate. We're going to get here in a second. But like this is a Seat of the Triumvirate where you have to be blasting. You have different dungeons that require different things. And at this point, on every healer, I've done almost every dungeon. And I've tested all the different hero talents as well. You could see the breakdown as well. And I have the data to support. So it's my opinion. But I can also tell you almost certainly when you start the season where things are going to struggle because of how the damage works. So the first dungeon I tried was Nexus. And because I wasn't familiar with Mistweaver, I wasn't able to help the first boss. The first boss has a big single target. You need to basically just rotate. It was very easy once I learned it, but I was misinterpreting it. When I first started, I was struggling and my DPS weren't moving fast enough. So basically it was just easy. It was Cocoon and then alternate between Thunder Focus T, Enveloping Mist, spot heal it, no problem. I was like solid as a no problem there. But I did suffer because I'm a melee healer. There was a lot of times the tank was moving in a way. It's beta, so most likely on live, we're going to get better at it. There won't be as many. We'll move better, but I was locked at a melee range for a few times. That's fine. Here's what's actually the coverage. I decided Master of Harmony as I was playing it. I played it for like 4 dungeons, and I was like, I could see how I can make this work, but I'm not really feeling it. Okay, moving on. Conduit. The second that I asked people on stream, I was like, hey, guys, Mistweaver, what do you think? and people were like, have you tried 2-minute Chi conduit build? I said, no, link me the build. I tried the build. I immediately fell in love with the healer. Dance of Chi, 2-minute, I actually felt like my buttons were impactful. And the reason I have this log open, and I have so many logs, like I said, we cannot dive through. I was playing Mistweaver this entire day. My healing was actually Chi actually felt like a button. And now I started to understand Mistweaver because I'm new to it. So maybe I'm still if you're a Mistweaver enjoyer, you're probably listening to this and you're like, wait a second, that's not right. But I'm learning it and I'm approaching it into these keys. Now, what I learned about Conduit was I had a button when I needed a button. That is the best feeling as a healer because I could rotate Conduit. I had that button and I could rotate that with Chi and I could rotate that with Thunder Focus Tea. And now all of a sudden I had coverage. When I went into Windwalker Spire and I healed people that I wanted to impress, I had no problem because a flame spit would happen. There's a big single target dot. And I was like, great, I have a plan for this. The big AoE, the phase on the dragon boss where we were moving around, I had a plan for this. In the Pit of Sauron, the second boss, remember, big healing cooldown every 60 seconds. I had a plan for it. I had Thunder Focus Tea for every single set. I could alternate the Chi and I could alternate things. That is the most important thing for healing right now. The first boss, which is pure HPS, I was able to put out the required HPS, although I did feel like as key levels get much higher, I would be lacking a little bit. These were all tested on 15, not 12, not 10. 10 and 12 is very easy on beta. That would be like on live doing a 10 or a 12 with our max level gear because we're testing at heroic item level. It'd be like on live going into a 10 floodgate and testing it with 7, 18 item level on live. That's kind of what it would be equivalent to. So it's like you're kind of overgeared for that. On a 15, though, you are checked. And if you don't play your spec properly, you will struggle and fall behind. So Conduit was very fun. It does need tuning because in terms of pure HPS, I do think it's falling a little bit behind, but I cannot help but rank it because I actually really enjoyed playing it. Spin to win is fun. I'm in there, I'm fist weaving. This is a bit of an opinion for sure, but I felt like I had coverage, so all they need to do is buff the values a little bit, and this healer will be able to do everything. You also have a group buff if it's a physical meta. So I actually think that this was genuinely, I highly recommend you give this a try. If you like Mistweaver, play 2-minute Chi Conduit, you actually have buttons, and on top of that, play Dance of Chi. I don't know, that was my opinion. I think this was one of the most fun healers I played on all of beta. I'd gladly play it again. I could see myself struggling if key level started getting really high and I would have to do the HPS that my Resto Druid has to do. I could see myself falling behind just a little bit, but overall, in the rot damage of the first boss of Pit of Sauron, I was able to keep up, and I had a plan because there's a point of that fight where you have to line of sight at a melee range, and I still had a plan for that. And that was a big difference between that and something like Master Harmony or whatever. Like, I was actually able to formulate a plan. So that, to me, is the biggest thing. Agency matters. Do I have a button to respond to the necessary requirements that the dungeon is asking me to do? I'm just helpless. This, I have a plan. It might not be perfect, and it could use some tuning, and that's the caveat here. It's not technically comparable to Disc Priest right now. I would say this is more powerful for sure, but at least I felt a plan. And I'm mobile. The other big thing, huge benefit this season, because almost all healing checks are you can't plant and heal. There's a lot of mobility required, okay? So this big ups that this can move while casting, and you can basically do almost your entire, there's a few times you're locked out of melee range, but otherwise it's a massive ups that you can move while healing. These are things that no one talks about because they're looking at sims. They're looking at like, hey, when I hit target dummies or I did one dungeon, I struggled with HPS on this healer, and there's the tier list. You got to understand that when you do keys, your tank's going to go left and you're going to go right in Mysara Caverns. Congratulations, you can't hit the boss for 10 seconds. Can you still heal? Kind of. Okay. That's going to happen. I guarantee you. Second boss and third boss both have area denial. They both have a thing where you're supposed to move with your tank stacks in the corner, your group stacks, you position things. That doesn't happen in pugs. There's a big circle. If the tank doesn't move properly, you can't hit the boss. Second boss, big puddles, area denial, big HPS as well as the fact that the HPS is not timed. That's a big thing in high grips. We'll talk about the dungeon. I'll make dungeon guides later. And going over how I would approach tanking and healing them, that'll be another project. Okay, 2 healers left. Don't worry, I'm not just going to sandbag or rank Prez too highly. Okay, Prez is feeling pretty solid on beta, but let's talk about Preservation Evoker. We have Chrono Warden and we have Flame Shaper. Both Preservation Evoker specs, everybody was talking about how Resto Shaman got absolutely gutted going into beta, but that's because nobody played Prez. Prez got gutted going into beta. They lost fundamental abilities just like Resto Shaman did. Equally as gutted, I would say. No Spirit Bloom, no Lifebind ramps. What's going on here? Can you even play Preservation Evoker? I was very scared to test it. The truth is you can absolutely play Prez. It actually doesn't feel that bad and effectively plays very similarly, if not exactly the same, because Verdant Embrace hits like a truck and the new talent is a massive quality of life. You no longer have to teleport to your target when you cast Verdant Embrace. My problem with that is that it is a talent that is in the very bottom of the tree and it feels kind of bad to path through because once I started playing with it, I couldn't not play with it, but I kind of don't want to take it because I wish I could take another talent. So I was a little bit torn. I still think you might see high-level Prez not play the Verdant Embrace, the Dream Simulacrum. Oh boy, I don't know how to pronounce that last word. That talent at the bottom of the Preservation Evoker tree. But the thing is, this is powerful. Now, in terms of fun, double Flame Breath with the Apex talent is very fun, and it's solid. But I think that it needs tuning. It does damage, but struggles with HPS. So here's the thing with Flame Shaper, and I want to talk more about Chrono Warden, but basically, I think that people are going to be drawn to it because of how the Apex talent reads, where you cast Dream Breath and you get your Blessing, but the Blessing kind of hits a little bit weak. The Blessing is not what you should rely on to heal, and Dream Breath is still more of a hot than it is an actual upfront burst heal. So I don't think that the playstyle of just big damage happening, Dream Breath, Blessing, Dream Breath, Blessing, that's actually going to be kind of weak healing. It's not weak, but it's just, there's a much better way to heal on Prez. Prez has always had this problem. There's many ways to heal. There are people who are absolutely going to make this work, but what I was noticing was that a lot of the Prez players on beta were starting to move more toward Chrono. Now, Chrono Warden, if we take a look at a log here, this was a Seed of the Triumvirate, which I managed to heal on 15 pre-nerf first week. That's a hard key to heal, man. That's not easy. Here, let's take a look at the Algothar. You can still do pretty good damage on Prez. Obviously, the issue is you don't have a group buff. So this is a log for Prez here. The damage is still pretty simple. There's not a lot to the damage rotation. It's you tip the scales. It's a big Fire Breath. It's a big Chrono Flames. Deep Breath when you can. It's not that complicated. So damaging rotation is simple still. But the healing starts to get really interesting. So I do think that it's fun. It's powerful, but I like Chrono a lot more than I like Flame Shaper. There was a lot of hype for Flame Shaper. I think Chrono is still better, and having a Blink is super underrated in keys. So I like Chrono. I think Chrono is, I would put it in solid. I can't actually rank it here because it does have a few issues. Rotationally and playstyle-wise, I think it's very powerful, and it's very solid. But if anything, it could use a little bit more numbers. I was able to do the HPS required, but I could absolutely see it getting kind of out HPS'd as key levels get higher. So the max key you can get on beta is a 15. If you time that 15, you can do 16, 17, etc. You do have Lust. That's pretty cool. Mage is, of course, looking really good. It's not a DPS tier list, but plot twist, Mage is looking excellent and hasn't been nerfed just yet. Actually, the other two specs were brought up. So, Lust probably won't be a problem. But I think that Prez is in a very good spot. It's not bad. It's certainly not bad. I just think, as always, you can make it work just like you can make anything else work. But the biggest thing for Prez, and I'm tempted to put it in very fun, to be honest. This is my own personal bias. Remember, I like Prez, and I think that I'm pretty good at Prez. Prez is my main. Of all the healers on this list, I know more about Prez than anything else. So I'm tempted to put it here, but I think for the general community, it should be in solid. I think I would be letting my own personal bias get way too if I put it here. It's it's the same thing with Conduit, but the thing is with Prez, it has coverage. So what you have is you have Stasis on a 130, and you can play the talent that buffs it, maybe if you want it. but you also have rewind, potentially on a 2-minute cooldown if you don't play E-loop. That's actually a mega combination because a lot of these big checks, like in Pit of Sauron, one of the only ways I was able to heal that second boss in a pug was because I was on my Prez. And the first one I stasis, the second one I rewind, the third one I stasis, the fourth one I rewind. And I had coverage for every single one. That's a giga button. Remember how I said that damage works? Big hit, health bars drop, rewind, boom. Cool. Now I have time to top people, and I can set up. It's fast-paced. I have enough haste to actually make my rotation work. It's giga, giga, giga. Boom, boom, boom. You still get your reversions out. Dream Breath ticking. You've ramped up correctly. Echoes go out. Boom. Cooldown. Bam. Cooldown. Boom. Verdant Embrace. Everybody's topped. So I feel powerful with that. Hit the Blessing. Bounces around. Top. Cool. After the damage, 5 seconds. Golden Hour. Boom. Top. So I still actually had the ability to top health bars. Monk kind of felt like that when I was in cooldowns. Not as good. I would put it like this. In terms of the ability to heal right now, Prez is a little better than Monk. And again, I can show you logs to back this up, where you can take a look at this key where it's a lot of damage, but also the healing on a pull like this. It's complicated. It comes from a lot of different sources, but still a lot of it is just maintaining your HOTS. Yeah? I didn't actually cast Blossom. This is part of the thing. Don't worry about that. But basically, like, you still have a lot of options, but you do have to game, and it requires a fundamental understanding of Prez to make it work. Okay? So I do think that Prez is actually in a pretty good spot. I do think it could get some tuning, but I think it's very fun to play. It's fast-paced. If you like Preservation Evoker, the new changes to it don't actually bring it down to a level that is unplayable. So that's the first thing, okay? Next thing, okay? Wildstalker and Keeper of the Grove. For fun today and for shits and giggles, I told myself that I would play every single healer on this list. I'm not going to rank something if I haven't played it myself, okay? That was my deal, because I want these tier lists to have integrity behind them, and I'm telling you, like, this is not just an opinion formed from one key. There's only a few. I played Herald for one key, and I was like, I'm going to play Lightsmith, okay? There's like 2 things here I played for one key. I think I played Flameshaper for only 1 or 2 keys, and then I was just like Chrono. So, Keeper of the Grove, Resto Druid. I actually played this today. I played it in an Algathar, and it was funny. I played a Boomy Weaving Keeper of the Grove just because it's beta, and I told myself I would test everything before I rank it on a tier list. I didn't want to not play it and just assume. It's not... I'm going to put it in needs tuning. It's still a Resto Druid, so a Resto Druid is so powerful. But man, it was weird not to play Wildstalker. And one of the ways they could nerf Resto Druid because of this is the fact that Wildstalker is so powerful. And it's mostly because the blooms affect mastery and stuff. So it's mostly just like when I regrowth, if I've set up properly on Wildstalker, when I regrowth, everyone's full health. Instantly. Even with the 20% nerf to Nature's Bounty. Man, is it just a full-on top, and it's perma coverage, not cooldown based whatsoever. You still have cooldowns too on a 1 minute and Trank. So you still have cooldowns, but it's not even cooldown based. You just actually go, it's the easiest thing, and you have infinite healing. It is amazing how much healing you can put out as a Resto Druid. To clarify, here are some logs. I wanted to show you, this was a Seat of the Triumvirate last boss. I was doing this on my Prez Evoker, and I was giga omega struggling a little bit. This is the last boss of Seat of the Triumvirate, 15, first week pre-nerf. Bro, oh my, it's a tough boss. A lot of movement, visual clutter, mechanics all the time. You're constantly moving, and you have to do massive HPS because it's a big rot fight. Resto Druid was like, I press this button, I press that button, I press this button, and all good. Second boss, Pit of Sauron, I press this button, I press that button, I press... It's basically overtuned. You're going to see another nerf to this. There's no way they keep it like this. So Resto Druid is actually overtuned right now, especially Wildstalker. But the other thing I wanted to show you is I look at other keys that I'm doing, and I'm like, you know that your DPS doesn't really matter as a healer right now. And that's kind of another advantage for Resto Druid is when I take a look at the logs, yeah, but I healed this and we double timed it. This was a double timed key. This was a 15 Windrunner Spire, new dungeon that they've released. This is a 15 Windrunner Spire from last week. Easy, double time. Granted, we were playing 2 OP specs with an AUG, but still, easy double time. And it's mostly about not letting your team die. The philosophy to healing changes, the one thing they haven't said, but I have felt in doing all these dungeons. And I have a lot of logs to show you. Like, just, I've been playing healer nonstop for 12 days now. Okay? So much of my experience has been your job is to heal. And the way they solve bolt slop is that even at a 15, bolts are not one-shotting people. You are kind of responsible for just healing. There's a lot of people who are going to like that, and there are some people who are not going to like that. Individual damage contribution from healers is quite low right now. I can tell you that if I was getting invited to, if I log on to beta right now, and people say, and I get a message, and Now messages me, he says, hey, I saw you on. We played beta last time. Just out of curiosity, are you able to heal a key? And I go, oh my god, Now? Ooh, sure. You know, if you insist, I'll come heal. And he said, great, we're gonna do a high dungeon. What do you want to heal on? I can tell you for sure what I'm bringing because he doesn't give a shit how much damage I do, but he does care if I let people die. I want to make a good impression. He's wow, I get to play with this guy. There's a lot of people like that on beta, you know. If Miraz invites me to a beta key, I'm thinking, oh, okay. I definitely am not bringing my Resto Shaman because I won't be able to pass the checks. Would you rather play Herald, Holy Paladin, or Wild Stalker, Resto Druid? Resto Druid. 100%. This one, I have infinite coverage, infinite options. No matter what happens in the key, if somebody makes a mistake, I got them. And I'm not dependent on cooldowns, but I act like I'm in cooldowns all the time. That's the thing about Resto Druid, is I feel like I'm in cooldowns nonstop all the time. I have Decurse, I have Poison Dispel, which is actually important for this. You literally, I can't express to you the rotation. Let me explain something. With Resto Druid, if you just Life Bloom, and then maybe you have some time, you rejuve, you don't even have to. But if you just Life Bloom, and then you go Regrowth, so the person that gets Rampant Ferocity, you get the thing, the top person gets Life Regrowth dot. You put 2 on people before the damage happens. And if you're playing Life Treading, you get the F-Low down. If you're not playing Life Treading, then you don't get F-Low down. That's fine. You put it down manually. That might be something. And all you do is this. You go like this, okay? Regrowth. And then the damage happens, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you know what those damage are? Look at the healing. Take a look at this dungeon. Okay, healing done. Boom. There you go. That's my HPS. This is the same button. This is Nature's Bounty from Regrowth. You literally just go, you put a few things out, and then you go boop, boop, and done. It's just Regrowth. You just spam Regrowth. Every HPS check is just Regrowth. It's unbelievable. You literally just go Regrowth. You're not even weaving in other buttons. When the damage actually happens, you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Regrowths, done. As long as you've pre-hotted, which is not even a long ramp anymore. Rejuve is almost optional. It's borderline optional. You just actually do this. Do you know what I mean? So it's really interesting. Yeah. I started a dungeon at one point, and my UI had reset itself, and I had no action bars. And I was like, no problem, guys. And I fucking healed the dungeon casting from my spellbook. I was like panic putting buttons on my bar, and I was like, I got this. And I was still able to heal. Keep in mind, the entire time I've been testing every healer on beta, I have actually been playing base UI. No add-ons, no assistance, no help. My Druid can't even see debuffs on frames because for some reason my Druid on beta is bugged. My Druid can't even see people who have debuffs. It doesn't matter because I have so much healing. It doesn't matter. Like in Magister's Terrace 15, when we were trying that the other day, we didn't time it, but when we were trying it, there's the second hallway, and they put a dot. There's a runic brand. It's very, very overpowered. They need to nerf that thing. So they're going to nerf it eventually. But they put a mark on somebody. It spreads to 2 people. 2 people get a dot, and it ticks for a massive amount of damage, plus your tank's in danger. And I was just on my Resto Druid. I was just like, oh, no problem. I couldn't even see who it was on. It didn't matter. Whereas on my Resto Shaman, I was like, oh, my God, okay, panic. And I was like barely able to keep people alive. And my Resto Shaman failed at the second boss. I was able to do it, but kind of barely. Whereas my Resto Druid was like, no problem. 2 people cleared. It's all good. Let me just hit this button, and everybody's topped, and everybody's topped, and everybody's topped. Now, the way for them to nerf Resto Druid, there's only 2 things they need to do, which is either actual nerf-based regrowth value, which is possible. They could just hit regrowth for 10% because the rest of your hots are just set up for regrowth right now. So if they take a look at the rest of the hots, that would be the wrong way to nerf it. They actually rebuffed the Everbloom. They rebuffed the Apex Talent as well by 5%. So that's going to be even higher. This was post nerf. This is not even the best healing breakdown. I'm not even that good at Resto Druid. But if all I did was just regrowth, that's fine. Like that, as of right now, that'll work. So if they just nerf regrowth or they nerf Wildstalker, because when I was doing the Algathar today as Keeper of the Grove, I would set up the same thing: Life Bloom, F-low down, yeah, and then I would go maybe a few seconds before the damage happens, Veximus, whatever. I know Croth is happening. I'll go rejuve, sure, and then I regrowth. The target that doesn't have Life Bloom on it. Now I have all my hots. I have Wild Growth beforehand as well to get some things out. That's blooms, but on Keeper of the Grove, it doesn't matter as much. And then I Swift Mend into regrowth, and it wasn't full topping people, even with that setup. So it is very kind of tied to Wildstalker just having the really big amps for regrowth. I do think that they could nerf Wildstalker again. And that's one of the reasons, again, even on live, Resto Druid is very dependent on Wildstalker. I tried to play a Dream of Cenaria's Boomy Weaving build here. It kind of worked, but it didn't really work. That is unfortunately. That dream is dead. Unfortunate. Remember, all of this is subject to change, but in terms of what I think design-wise, these guys are going to have options if they tune it well, and these guys won't. They could buff Chain Heal by 30% tomorrow, and it would still have the problems it has. They could buff Herald a little bit, and it would still have the problems it has. Like, they're just fundamentally missing something. They could buff... They already did today. They took a look at Holy Priest. They nerfed the Archon a little bit, the Surge of Light procs, but they did buff Flash of Light and Serenity. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't change the fundamental thing. Like, even if they put that up a little bit, I think Archon at least has options with its AoE, Prayer of Mending, if you play Lightweaver and stuff. I'm not sure if you will. But the idea is... When I was testing it myself, there were certain times I felt helpless, and I would feel helpless on a lot of these healers right now. Maybe not. I mean, I really like Evoker, so I probably would be able to make a plan on Evoker, but I would put this here because other people who have played Flameshaper, as well as me, and seeing other people play it, I noticed that their HPS was quite low on a lot of checks. You can game it. You could totally do it, just like you could game it on anything else. If you really want to play Holy Priest, you can make it work. If you really want to play this, I was playing with one of the best Resto Shamans on beta, and he was struggling to do 80k HPS. Meanwhile, I walk in, and one of the first dungeons I do on Mistweaver, I get over 100k on a boss. And then Resto Druid can casually maintain double that. Like, pretty much. Like, Resto Druid is unbelievably good. You do have mana problems on Resto Druid. As silly as it sounds, Resto Druid has a little bit of a mana issue if you're actually healing that much. But... as key levels get higher, you'll notice that the damage becomes scalable. Like, starts to scale to an unimaginable amount. Resto Druid, I think, is the only healer, and maybe Oracle Disc, if they plan well, are kind of the only healers that are currently able to do that. So you'll see tuning. This tier list is meant to give you an idea of how the healers feel on beta. It isn't meant to be the gospel of tuning, because they can change numbers in a heartbeat. You watch what happened with Beastmaster Hunter. I went over this in a video yesterday where I was going over the Vengeance Demon Hunter buffs and the Beastmaster stuff. I don't have any logs open today. I'll have to show you another time. But basically, Beastmaster Hunter was the best DPS spec on beta. If you look at the Windrunner Spire I did on my Prez, you'll notice the comp that we're running in that dungeon. This one, I think. No, this is the Algathar here. This one here. Look. This was the comp. So if you take a look at the comp... Oh, boy. Never mind. This one. Nope, this one. I'll find it eventually. It was double Beastmaster Hunter and Og. Beastmaster Hunter was the actual best DPS on beta, give or take. The problem with that is... This was a 16 that we did. Nah, I can't find it right now. I'll look at it later. The point is, Beastmaster Hunter was the best. It was so good, they nerfed it. And now Beastmaster Hunter today in my testing was like, it kind of was bad. So you don't want to be the top. If your healer is here right now, good. It's early on in beta. Trust me, you really want this. This is exactly what you want. This is exactly what you want. You want to be mid. Like, you don't want to be the top. You gotta understand that for tier listing right now. When I make this is a preliminary tier list, but I have a lot to say about healing. Tanking feels exactly the same, guys. Tanking feels exactly the same. tank tier list was so easy. It was like, hey guys, this is good, this is rough, this is what this feels like. Easy. I can make a tank tier list in 10 minutes. But healing tier list, healing was the most stressful role on beta by far. By far, by the way. It was unbelievably more stressful. And because there's a lot of HPS checks in these dungeons, and some of them are constant. And I was just like, I don't like feeling like I don't have agency. These healers don't have agency. I could not, I mean, maybe as keeper, we'll ignore these two. But basically, I was just sitting there like, I'm doing my best. I'm focused. I'm locked in, and people are still dying. Like, I can't do anything. So that doesn't feel good. And when it comes to healing, I do hope they take a look at this. They either need to change encounter design and start nerfing the second boss of Pit of Sauron, or they need to enable healers to have more options. They can't have both. They cannot have both. You can't design mechanics that require healers to have burst big healing cooldowns and then take away healer cooldowns. That's not fair. Like, that's not fun for anybody. If healers aren't powerful, then no one enjoys the game. Like, everyone does not enjoy the game. So healing and tanking both need to be powerful. They can do that in any which way they want. Whether or not they don't, it's not damage. Damaging numbers are one way to look, but you don't, even if healers do no damage, it's fine. Just keep the group alive. Even if that's what healing ends up being, but healing still needs to be powerful. Those are my thoughts. That's going to be the update for today. I'll be updating with logs and data and continuing to test every single day. If you're interested in any of that and you like this video, like and subscribe. I will be doing these every day, not the tier list thing. God, this is a special thing. When there are big updates, we can go ahead and update this, but try it for yourself. If you are questioning any of this, if you have access to beta, log on, see what's changed with your spec. I do think overall healing in Midnight is going to be just fine. I do think they have plenty of time to fix a lot of the things I've been talking about, and I genuinely think that the game is going to be enjoyable to play. I don't think healers should be dooming. I've been playing with base UI and base frames, no Platinator for me, no add-ons whatsoever, and I've been just fine. It will be okay. And that is the last message I would like to say. This isn't dooming. This is meant to be feedback about how sometimes I feel like I have no agency, and I would like, they can fix that though. That's fine. Like, the game is going to be very fun to play. The Midnight Dungeons are pretty cool. Some of them are overtuned, as always. And otherwise, everything is going to be fine, man. Like, it's going to be okay. But these are the points that I've noticed about healing specifically. And I'm excited to keep healing. If tomorrow I log on and all I do is heal, I would like to play my Mistweaver. No joke. This is, I think, the most fun I had, which is why I couldn't put it lower. Like, this should be a needs tuning. But if there's one healer I want to play, this build is so much fun. I don't know what it is. It just feels so impactful. Like, I just really like this. So that's what I would want to do tomorrow if I was healing, or continue to test a few other things. I will be here if you want to